Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Red Circle, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn the notifications on. Also, check us out on Off the Floor. You get text directly to your phone from the four hosts of Five on the Floor. Bypass Twitter, just $3.05 per month. It's actually free for the first week, or $30 for the year is the best deal. Also, check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Our guy, Danny, he's waiting on Dame just like you are. Check him out at All Pro Construction Builders. Go to allproconstructionbuilders.com. Hurricane season has already begun. It's hard to know it with it being like 100 degrees outside. But yes, it's begun. The named storms are coming. Make sure that you get your house or place of business fortified. He can do the storm windows, the storm doors for you. These are all locally made, American-made products, and it's a family business, state certified, and all that good stuff. Go to All Pro Construction Builders on Instagram or allproconstructionbuilders.com, or reach out to Danny directly at 305-484-4429. That's 305-484-4429. And now, today's episode.
Down the Biscayne. Five on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all band. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the Five Reasons Sports Network.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick and at Five Reasons Sports. We got Brady Hawk. You can follow him at Brady Hawk 305. Yes, we are still waiting on Dame. Not really a whole lot new to report there. I guess the Maxey versus Hero debate took over for about 24 hours. And then, as happens on Twitter, everybody's going to forget about that and move on to the next thing. We're in a holding pattern here while Joe Cronin decides what to do. The Miami Heat don't seem inclined to offer a whole lot more right now. This is kind of a dead period. I mean, there's really nothing going on here in the NBA until training camps open towards the end of September. And so there might be a lot of no news days. So we're going to focus on the team as it is, or as it may look after Dame. Brady and I are going to go through the front court today because the Heat have made changes there. This idea that they haven't done anything while they're waiting for Dame. Bam Adebayo, of course, is still there, and he will be the starting center, not power forward. So everybody get that out of your head. He's going to be the starting five. That's the way that this team likes to play. I have a neighbor of mine here, Brady, in Fort Lauderdale, who loves Omer Yurtseven, just loves him. Like, I mean, every time I step out of my door, he was asking why Spo doesn't play Yurt more. He can't play Yurt anymore because Yurt is now in Utah, so we will get into that. So Yurt is gone. Cody Zeller is in Charlotte. I know a lot of Heat fans are happy about that, but actually you were pretty happy with the way Cody was playing at the beginning, kind of soured towards the end. Dwayne Dedmon, I don't know where he is, but he was in training camp to start last season, and he was on a nice new juicy contract that turned out to be a huge mistake. Orlando Robinson is here, and he has a standard contract, and he's coming off being a summer league first teamer with the way that he performed, averaging huge numbers in the summer league and was very consistent throughout, particularly towards the end of it in Vegas. Nikola Jovic is still here. We don't know for how long, but obviously the Miami Heat are going to try to keep him if they trade for Dame. But he's a piece that you would think at 20 years old that Portland would want their first round pick from last year. And don't forget Kevin Love, who was not in training camp last year, but will be in training camp this year, providing some of the things that Udonis Haslem provided for this team, but likely playing more. And of course, UD is not here. Did I miss anybody?
No, I think that's pretty much it. And if you want to throw Haywood Highsmith in the mix, because he'll probably be playing some five throughout the season.
Well, Jimmy will probably be playing some five too. So yeah. Haywood Highsmith is an option there at the four. So let's just look at what, okay, we don't know who the starter is going to be right now. So let's just start with that, because I feel like that will kick off kind of how the unit looks as a group. With what they have right now, let's say that there is no Dame, okay, by training camp. Is Kevin Love the starting four?
I think so. I do. I think it's just hard to put him off the bench and play him as backup 4 when the bigs that we're going to be talking about are not elite defensively. It's just like, we know that the reason why Spo goes small is not because he doesn't want rebounding. It's because he wants to be more versatile. He wants more defenders. He wants to be have more flexibility on offense and defense. Kevin Love starting has shown that they could be able to do that. If you have him off the bench, you are religiously having to stay in zone, as I've been saying. Like, you have to stay in a 2-3 zone the entire time you're in that kind of lineup. So yeah, I think Kevin Love starts. As we've talked about, I think Caleb Martin probably closes a lot at the 4 in a lot of these situations. If like Dame or not, if you have a Jay Rich, Jimmy, Caleb, Bam 2 through 5, I think that's probably where they'll land most nights. So yeah, I think Kevin Love's kind of a starts, and then now it's about. This is why it's interesting, because we talked about before. We remember a couple of years ago when the guard room was so extremely crowded. It was just a bunch of guards, and it was trying to figure out who was going to play. Now it's like, it's not like you have these elite depth of bigs. It's not like you have like you don't know who to play, but you have solid guys that you don't know who's going to be in this mix when you have about 3 or 4 of these guys that can plug in.
Yeah, and I didn't even mention Caleb Morton at the beginning, and he could be the starting 4 because he was the starting 4 last season. Yeah. Okay, so Dame or no Dame, Kevin Love's going to have a role with this team. That's for sure. I guess when we look at okay, let's look at who's in and who's out, okay, in terms of what they were looking for here. So, again, Kevin Love is in veteran presence, kind of replaces Udonis Haslem in that role, but is going to play more than Udonis did. Okay, so let's set him aside. Can we agree, though, no disrespect, and I don't want him coming to my place, it's an upgrade?
Which one? You're talking
from
about
a playing
Kevin
perspective.
Love?
Having an active Kevin Love in training camp as opposed to having an active Udonis Haslem, just from a playing standpoint. Yes. How much Spo's going to use it?
Definitely from a playing standpoint. I mean, I think he showed, especially, I know he didn't have like the greatest regular season start when he came to this roster. And then in the playoffs, we saw the ways that he could utilize. He found his 3-ball a little bit. He found his scoring ability. And we talked about, joke around about the perfect big next to Bam and trying to find things that counteract him. But Kevin Love did a good job of simply like staying out of Bam's way. Like, sometimes you need a 4 that's just going to stay out of a guy of that caliber's way. And his spacing mattered. I thought he played well with Jimmy, and I thought the chemistry he had with Bam was pretty good. And the fact that you could have a guy that, in terms of like moving Bam to the 4, if you can just move to Bam to the 4 on defense in certain spots where he can guard a certain 4, and you have Kevin Love that could just move around on a immobile big, it makes sense. So I think in terms of definitely in playing wise, it's definitely an upgrade just for the reason of the fact that he does fit well with Bam.
All right, so let's go to the veteran center presence. Dwayne Dedmon was in camp last year, was kind of replaced by Cody Zeller, and then is replaced by a younger model, but with some experience in Thomas Bryant. Upgrade?
For sure. And I think one of the biggest things is I say this a lot, was like, in terms of those veteran big men that they pick up to kind of back up Bam, you may have a good month in them. You may have a good 2 or 3 months in them, but you're not going to have past that. Like, when you pick up a guy off the street or off their couches, what they've done with some of these guys, they always look really good off the bat. Like, they come out and they look springy. They look like they could run the floor a little bit. They have like these decent moments throughout their stretch. And then as things grow out a little bit, it's like, oh, wait, they're starting to clamp down a little bit. It's not looking as good. So in terms of Thomas Bryant, you're picking up a much younger option. Like, this is a total different direction that they're going here. And I like the move. I like the idea of a guy that could probably give you more over a longer period of time that you can actually potentially develop if you want. Like, it's not like a Thomas Bryant type is done developing. They could still develop certain parts of his game if they want to. I mean, in terms of defensively, I'm not going to say that's a big upgrade from one to the other. I think they still have to do similar things that they did probably, with any of these guys that they played. You have to blitz out because you can't have him sit and drop. You have to play in zone a ton when he's out there on the floor. But the big thing is that there's way more offensive juice to his game than we've seen, obviously, with Dedmon or Cody Zeller. It's not going to be, you have to go screen, dive, repeat. You just have to keep doing that over and over and over. Thomas Bryant could have a game where he puts up some numbers. Like, he could have a game where he possibly starts running some pick and pops or popping out to that 3, and he starts knocking some down. And he has some different things he can go to in the mid post and down low. So I'm just interested to see what Miami gets out of him, because I think there's still stuff to kind of wrinkle out from him offensively. But like, I think the big question, the reason why he's still in the market when he was, and it's the reason why Denver kind of leaned away from it at certain points in the playoffs, is the defense can be problematic. So that'll be interesting to see how Spo reacts then, kind of plays him throughout this run.
All right, we're going to get into the rest of the front court here in a second. I do want to mention a couple sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Prize Picks, use the code 5, FIVE, get that initial deposit matched up to $100. David Eversole and I have been going through the NFL futures right now. We've done running backs and quarterbacks. You can jump on those. They have NBA futures on there too. Points per game for Jimmy Butler and others. I didn't check to see if Dame is on there, but I guess I should. Use the code 5, FIVE, get that initial deposit matched up to $100. There are no rollovers. Also, check out our friends over at Water Cleanup of Florida. That's WCUFL.com, based in Boca Raton, but they can service the entire area. Michael Robert and his team, they got a ton of experience up there. They got a ton of 5-star Google reviews. They will not do the job unless they think they can do the job. They're not going to hustle you or anything like that. You got to be careful with that with contractors. Reach out to Water Cleanup of Florida, mold, water leaks, any of that kind of stuff. They've also got a preventative program that you can get into. Go to WCUFL.com. That's WCUFL.com, or reach out to Michael at 954-579-0356. That's 954-579-0356. If you've got the schmutz, they got the guts. Yurt. Some will say that Spo didn't have the guts to play Yurt. That's Heat Facebook believes. I don't want to disparage him, because we were talking him up coming into camp last year. That he was going to have his opportunity. Actually, even started in one preseason game when it looks like Spo, I don't know, maybe it was forced at gunpoint, but I mean, to start 2 bigs, but he did, and then it didn't look very good, and but then Yurt got hurt, and so he never really got an opportunity to show what he could do. And then when he came back later on, they'd already signed Zeller and Love, and even when Zeller was struggling, Spoelstra didn't go to him. Now you have Orlando Robinson, who looked great in Summer League also this time around. Why is this different? And is this an upgrade?
So I'll start by saying I feel like Yurt was dealt kind of a poor hand of cards in terms of the fact that we were having that discussion. He ends up getting injured, and it kind of hurt that discussion in general. But I think this idea that, like, just because he started that preseason game, and if like he wasn't in that situation, he would have been the starter to start the season, I definitely disagree with. Like, I do not think they were heading in that direction. Even in training camp, like, there was people I heard that those lineups did not look good in training camp. Like, they were having certain issues. So yeah, I did not agree with that point of things. But the difference, I feel like, in terms of, is it an upgrade? We were actually going through this on playback the other day, kind of comparing the two. I feel like there's certain elements in terms of, number one, Orlando Robinson, in terms of a shooter, is much cleaner in terms of his jumper. Like, you're in a lot of big men in this league, it's like you have to like load up on their shot. Like, you got to do like a wind up to get into that jumper. Orlando has a clean, kind of smooth, quick jumper in a way that, if you're translating to NBA speed, that he can get that up frequently. I guess you probably give the nod to Yurt as a rebounder, just because of the stuff he was able to do on that run. Defensively, I might lean Orlando like a little bit. I think in terms of what he could do in space compared to what Yurt could do in space, I don't say it's like a massive upgrade, but I think Orlando could do a little bit more defensively. And then the fact of the matter is that Orlando just showed a lot more, it feels like, in terms of different spots of the floor than Yurt did in Summer League. I feel like that's the major difference. Like, Yurt, not to disparage him once again, but like, Yurt did a lot of good stuff with kind of touch around the rim. He did some stuff with finishing. He had a couple times where he kind of stretched the floor, but Orlando's kind of developing stuff where he's doing stuff mid-post, jabbing and getting into different shots in the mid-range. He's popping out from 3. He's finishing with his back to the basket down low, which is his comfort area. And something I've been talking about that I think is just huge is the fact that he developed this little push shot in the middle of the floor, which is always weird for younger bigs. They always like have trouble in those in-between areas of the game. He found that little shot. I don't know if it's going to translate over, but we'll have to see. And the last thing I'll say, I think the worry is, will it pay off, and will he be able to be more utilized than Yurt was, I guess, in the past? I think that's like out of the big question. But to be fair, Orlando was comparable for like a month or two last regular season. Like, he was out there as their backup big, and he held up. Like, he did a decent job. We weren't, when you sit out here and Cody Zeller comes in for a minute and everybody's screaming, nobody was screaming and get Orlando Robinson out the game for that month. Like, he did his job. So Now you're talking about a much better and improved Orlando Robinson. I'd say I'm definitely in a 2-on-2 flip. You're going from Cody Zeller and Omer Yurtseven to Thomas Bryant and Orlando Robinson. Right now, as it stands, I think that's a definite upgrade. That is a definite upgrade in terms of your big man depth. And I think at certain points of the season, I think Thomas Bryant, as I said before, is going to be a very good backup big for them in spurts and stuff that they can go to. But I think there's going to be pockets of this season where Orlando Robinson's actually their backup big. And it's not that I think he's going to go out there and be all summer league first team and drop 25. I just think he can do his job good enough. And they seem to like him because when they tell him to play a role, he'll play a role.
Yeah, and he's been talking himself up too, which actually coming out of these summer leagues is usually a good thing because you get a sense of a guy who believes that he can play in the system and that they're giving him confidence. Of course, Yurt didn't lack in confidence either, but very similar. But I do think with Orlando Robinson, like you said, we saw him fit in somewhere. With Yurt, it was more so he got his numbers when everybody was out. And that's different, especially for a contending team, because there aren't going to be those opportunities where you're a primary option, like you said. But here's the wild card, though. So, okay, the reason we're not doing a backcourt episode is we don't know what the backcourt's going to look like. Like, I mean, Tyler and Lowry and Robinson could be gone. Dame could be in. We don't know who else could be in. I mean, the front court, these guys are going to be here, like Bam, Love, Thomas Bryant, Orlando Robinson. Orlando Robinson can't even be traded for like 4 months. So, I mean, he's going to be here. But then there's a couple of other guys here. We mentioned Caleb, who's kind of a swing guy. So, I mean, he's an option, obviously, to play at the 4 if they want to go smaller, but they may not need to do that this year because they have better options up front from the beginning. But Jovic and Highsmith are really the swing guys. I mean, Highsmith, I think in the case of Highsmith, you can plug and play him anywhere. It's just that now we know he can do it. Like going into camp last year, you didn't know, and there were other things that he developed. But the real wild card, and we haven't even mentioned Hawkins, so we don't know if he's going to be here or not. And this team is deeper. There's no question. Like right now, even before the Dame trade, I think they're deep. And you talk about you have Josh back there now. I mean, without Strus and Vincent, I get it. I understand that. But if you look at the other pieces, we're talking about they've upgraded at 3 of the big spots. And as of the moment, they have Jovic and Highsmith ready to play bigger roles, and they've added Hawkins, and they haven't lost Caleb. So they're actually, yes, I understand Vincent and Strus, but this team on the whole, this is why I tend to disagree with Greg that they're worse than last year. I'm not saying they're going to win the East with this group, okay? I'm not, okay? But I'm just saying that they need to get Dame. But I'm just saying, if they went to camp with this team, the problem is not the roster, the problem is the vibes, I think. Okay, the problem is bringing, Duncan and Kyle and particularly Tyler back to camp after they've been floated in trade rumors all summer. But let's get to Jovic, because this is the wild card. Like, let's say they don't make the Dame trade, or let's say they make the Dame trade and somehow keep him. Then where does he fit? Because Love's going to be here, Thomas Bryant's going to be here, Orlando Robinson's going to be here, Bam's going to be here. Is there a chance Jovic starts at the 4?
Is there a chance? I guess. Do I think it happens? No. I don't think that's the way they'll land. In terms of when you were talking about their depth, I'll start by saying it's funny how before we were talking about like their backcourt filling in for their front court, where it was like plugging in guards in their front court. Now you're talking about like plugging their front court into their backcourt. Like
Caleb's more of a guard now with this team.
He is, especially if Dame gets here. Like you have to plug him in different spots. And then if you're running certain lineups and Jovic is playing, he might be, everybody talks about point Jovic. You might have to run that just because of the way that this roster is currently constructed. In terms of Jovic's role, that's the part that's interesting, because you go through these exercises and everybody, of course you want to keep Jovic. Like that is your future asset that you sit there and have, and he's looking good in summer league and he continues to develop. But in terms of him plugging right into rotation, it's hard to see where he would fit in, because if you're starting, like we said, Kevin Love, where is he going to fit in off the bench? Is he going to play the backup 4? Well, where's Haywood Highsmith fitting in? Is he playing at a 3, or is he subbing in? It's just very awkward. And you obviously mentioned you still have Hawkins to mess around with, who I think is extremely NBA ready. Like I think he's a guy that you could plug in immediately and he can make an impact off the bench. So that's the part that's weird about this. Like I honestly have no clue how they're going to fit this in. I think part of it is Kevin Love's not going to play 70 games. I don't think he's going to play 60 games. Like I think he's going to Kevin Love's going to have that DNP a lot of nights where that's where Jovic's minutes will come from. And they could plug in Haywood Highsmith in these different spots. Look, if Dame is in Miami, I think Haywood Highsmith could potentially be the starting four. Like, there's a case to be made at that as well. So if you're talking about that, maybe off the bench, you're talking about Kevin Love or Nikola Jovic. Like, maybe that's a situation where we're having that discussion and they can kind of bounce off each other like that. And as much as we talk about Hawk as being a 3, maybe not in this situation now because they have more front court depth, but I don't see a reason why they wouldn't play him at the 4 as well. I know nobody wants to hear that, but I know we're going to see some Hawkins at the 4 if he's still in Miami. So it's going to be crowded. And that's why I say, like, there's got to be a point where they sub in some stuff for some guard depth. Like, we keep talking about the Boyes and different guys on the Summer League roster, but like, they are now looking very thin in the guard room and very heavy in the big man room. So it's going to be, and it's funny because it's Eric Spoelstra who's always leads on the guards more than the bigs. So now you have to figure out a way to go bigger and plug in these bigs in different spots. So that's the part that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you've added Josh, but you've really, from last training camp, you've lost Max, Gabe, and Oladipo. So those were 3 guys that they were counting on to be part of their guard room coming out of training camp. I mean, Depot got hurt in training camp, but those were 3 guys. And really, like I said, you only replace them with one proven guy, and then you slide Caleb back to there. So that kind of becomes your other guard there. But again, they don't have a movement shooter. We've talked about that other than Duncan. So Duncan takes a more prominent role. But you're right, that they are they're thin there. They're and you know, again, in the front court, you know, you talk about maybe trading a front court player for guard. Well, nobody's taking Kevin Love in a trade. You're not trading Thomas Bryant. Now, you can't trade Orlando Robinson for a while. I mean, I guess you could flip Haywood Highsmith for a guard maybe to some team, but I think that's unlikely. So I just, they're a little bit unbalanced. You're right, the other direction. Pat's probably happy about this, I would think. And you're right, Spo is probably trying to figure out ways to still play Jimmy at the 5. So there you go. All right, thanks to Brady. Thanks to our sponsors, Prize Picks, Altbro Construction Builders, altbroconstructionbuilders.com, Water Cleanup of Florida, WCUFL.com. These probably won't be out by the time that we start this, but we are doing playback today on a similar topic. We're going to start doing stuff on playback so you can interact with us on some of these topics. Make sure that you're signed up there with us. It's free. Playback.tv/5RSN. That's playback.tv/5RSN. Subscribe to Off the Floor. Subscribe for free to our YouTube channel. Subscribe, of course, to 5 on the Floor. We'll have more shows coming up all week. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.